Good afternoon, y'all. Good night. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, you guys are ready to talk some fishing. Now, this video, we're going to talk to you about some fishing tips and tricks to hopefully make you more successful nearshore and offshore fishing. So if you want to learn more about fishing, you've tuned into the right video. My name's Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. Hubbard's Marina has been fishing local waters since 1928. And luckily, I'm blessed to be the son of a son of a son of a sailor. And my great-grandfather started our company back in 1928 from rowboats with cane poles. We do a lot of different types of fishing trips here at Hubbard's Marina. And tonight, we're going to be hopefully sharing some tips and tricks to help you be more successful. So we're going to start out with a little bit of a fishing report. Today we had a 12-hour extreme trip out there with Captain Anthony. They came in with a huge load of American red snapper, another boat limit, some nice big scamp grouper. One scamp grouper was pushing the 12-pound mark, so a monster scamp grouper. Anthony did really well out there. They also caught some big tuna, one of the biggest blackfin tunas he's ever landed, he said. So tuna, grouper, American red snapper, they got it all in the 12-hour extreme today. It was a great trip. We also had a 12-hour party boat trip out there. They caught around 50 to 60 nice American red snapper, some grouper as well, and some more snapper species like the porgies and the yellowtails and the vermilions. So they did well out there on the 12-hour party boat trip. Captain Joe is now running the Mrs. Hub, and the Mrs. Hub was on a 20-hour trip. Got a boat limit of grouper, boat limit of American red snapper, and got some monster yellowtails and some nice mangrove snapper too. The mangrove snapper bite continues to improve. The red grouper bite continues to improve. We talked a lot this spring about the mangrove snapper and the red grouper bite being a little bit slower than we'd like. Luckily, both of them seem to be improving. So we really are doing well out there on the fishing. And tonight, hopefully, we're going to give you some tips and tricks so you can come out and join us and catch plenty of fish too. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to drop your questions into the comment box. Even if you're not watching live, definitely drop your comment into the comment box and we'll be more than happy to answer whatever questions you might have. So again, this is a fishing conversation. I want to talk with you, not at you. So let me know what you want to hear, what you want to talk about, and we'll get this thing rolling. I know the 39-hour trips, I want to definitely mention that we have 39-hour trips coming up with super light loads. We've been doing really well on the 39-hour trips. Awesome boat limits of American red snapper, huge red grouper, some nice big gags came in on the 39-hour. Lots of yellowtails, a few vermilions. They had 200 mangrove snapper in one stop on the 39-hour trip that came in today. So definitely doing well on the 39-hour as well. We've got a super light load coming up on Sunday, June 17th and Sunday, July 8th. So if you want to get out on a 39-hour trip with us at Hubbard's Marina, those are two trips that you should definitely book now. All right, so let's get into some of these questions we got here. John Neminsky said, I want to go, what bait should I get? Well, John, it really depends on what type of fish you want to catch. Right now, American red snapper are biting very well on bonita strips. Doing very well on bonita strips right now. Red grouper as well. The bonita are out there in force. And definitely the bonita strips are a great bait to choose from, John. Also, the baby octopus we sell in our shop work well for the red snapper. But one of my go-tos for red snapper is just simply a threadfin plug. Cut the tail off the threadfin, cut the head off the threadfin, and trim the belly a little bit. That seems to be a mangrove snapper killer, and a lot of times you'll pick up those aggressive red snapper along with it. You can always use a bigger live bait, John, for some of those bigger red snapper, and you have a shot at some of those nice big gag grouper too. So definitely adjust this camera down a little bit. So definitely some big live bait's a great option too, John. So it really depends on your species of fish that you're targeting, buddy. But right now I would suggest the bonita strips or a chunk of the threadfin or a large piece of squid. for those American red snapper. Jovan was talking about what type of line to use. I always prefer mono for mono or fluorocarbon for bottom fishing. Braided line is terrible if you fish straight braid for bottom fishing. Never want to fish straight braid for bottom fishing. You always want a top shot. That's going to help you catch more fish. If you use straight braided line, that fish is able to tear a hole in the side of his mouth and spit that hook super easy. So if you're using braided line on your conventional reels, you have to have a top shot. A top shot is just simply adding monofilament or fluorocarbon with a line-to-line knot on top of your braided line in the spool of your reel. And then once you get to put a little bit of monofilament or fluorocarbon on top of that braid, then you would put that egg sinker on that top shot and then tie a swivel and then your leader. So you could say the top shot's your leader before your leader. And what that does is that acts as a shock absorber. So that way when you get one of those snapper species or those big grouper and they're shaking their heads, they're fighting hard, that shock in the line is going to absorb instead of that shock going to the hook in the side of the fish's mouth and enabling him to tear a hole in the side of his mouth. If you fish straight braid, you probably know what I'm talking about. You'll start cranking, you'll get that fish up off the bottom, you'll have him 10, 15, 20 cranks off the bottom and it just comes unhooked. Super frustrating. And what's happening is that straight braided line allows that fish to tear that hole in the side of his mouth and spit your hook once you get him up off the bottom. So it's very important that you have that top shot. That's going to act as a shock absorber and prevent you from losing fish, Jovan. Justin said, 30-something years old, never a snook pooner red. What am I doing wrong? Well, Justin, we're going to be mainly focusing here on nearshore and offshore fishing. But definitely, if you haven't caught a snook, redfish, or tarpon, your techniques could possibly be some of the issue. I would say any pass right now, anywhere. The snook are spawning on the beach right now. The snook bite is incredible inside John's Pass. Smokey, our first mate on our 12-hour trip, showed up for work this morning around 5:15, tied up a hand line and grabbed a shrimp. One shrimp in about 5 minutes. He had a nice big snook up on the dock. So one shrimp, one kill, he said this morning, and we didn't kill it. We released it safely. They are out of season right now. But to answer your question right now, the snook bite is incredible. So if you haven't caught a snook yet, Justin, come on down to Hubbard's Marina. I'll show you where to go. We'll show you what bait to use, how to rig it. Basically, any type of live bait free-lined into the current at the right tide, you're going to smack some monster snook. There's a lot of snook hanging around right now. I just ran a shark trip Friday night, and coming in from that shark trip, there was snook everywhere. I was backing into the slip and put it in gear and caused the water to rush up against the seawall, and the snook scattered like greenbacks. That's how thick they are inside John's Pass right now, Justin. So the spawning snook are leaving the bayous and rivers. They go through the passes out into the beach, and they hang on the beach. So in the early morning, you can sight fish snook by using live shrimp and about 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon and about a 2 to 3/0 circle hook on the beaches. And that would be my recommendation for you. A calm morning. Go out to Madeira Beach, St. Pete Beach, around Blinds Pass area. Any one of those. Paso Grill Beach is awesome. And you don't cast straight out, Justin. You cast parallel to the beach. Those little troughs, if you've ever been to the beach and walked straight out, you'll kind of fall into one of those holes. And that trough is where those snook are traveling adjacent to the beach. And all you do is cast at about a 45-degree angle away from your feet along the beach, along the shoreline, and work that live bait into that trough, and you're going to get smashed by some nice snook. Also, tarpon this time of year, Justin, are doing the same thing. They're leaving the pass early in the morning, and they're traveling up the beaches. Egmont Key Channel gives you a great chance for catching tarpon. Right at John's Pass today, I was running the half day, and there's tarpon fishermen right at John's Pass, Bell Buoy. So John's Pass, Blinds Pass, Egmont Key, Paso Grill, they're all loaded down with tarpon right now. and we'd be more than happy to help you get on a tarpon fishing trip. Great way to do that is just go fishing with the guide, and the guide will show you what to do, give you some tips and tricks to take away. So often people say, well, I want to learn how to do this. You can cheat and hire a guide, and the guide will take you on his boat and show you what to look for on your own boat. So you can always go that route, Justin, and we can get you in contact with some of the best tarpon charters in the area. Just give our office a call, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. So Jovan said, what is the difference between besides line space? So I assume you're relating that back to your braided line versus mono question. The big difference between braided line and monofilament is braided line does not have any shock absorption. It does not stretch. So it does not stretch, different from mono. Also, braided line has zero memory, whereas monofilament's going to have memory. It's a little bit stiffer. So because monofilament's a little stiffer and it has memory, that's going to enable it to move through the water differently than the braided line. The braided line is going to cut through the water. That's why you can't fish straight braid on a party boat, because if one guy's using braid and 5 people around him are using mono, he's going to tangle everybody up all the time. So you have to add that top shot. That way your line is going to act more like the people's lines around you, and you're not going to get tangled up. You're not going to have to cut your braid, and you're going to be much more happy while you're out there fishing. So also the big difference between braided line and monofilament, Jovan, is braided line has a much thinner diameter. That's also another reason why it cuts through the water more easily. It's thinner diameter. Monofilament or fluorocarbon is going to be typically thicker in diameter. Let's see. Corey Arndt, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Corey, I apologize. Said, what type of fishing rods and reels do you guys use for bottom fishing for snapper and grouper and blackfin tuna? What is the best bait for all that is my question. Well, Corey, my favorite fishing rod to use would be a variety of rods. I love our Hubbard's Marina killer sticks. They're custom rods that my father and I designed for offshore and nearshore fishing. We sell them in our shop for $129, so they're not too pricey, and they're really, really good setups. We are working with Bull Bay rods, and we're looking forward to coming out with some Hubbard's Marina style Bull Bay rods, but unfortunately, if you're too busy to build a rod for yourself, you're just too busy. So I need to get over there to Bull Bay rods and get those Hubbard's Marina Bull Bay rods made up, and we'll have some of those in our shop eventually too, Corey, but they are a great option for you. Dogfish Tackle, Bass Pro Shops, any of those local shops, St. Pete Fishing Outfitters, Tampa Fishing Outfitters, any local shop, Betts Fishing Center, all the local tackle shops can get you set up with a great rod, Corey. The biggest thing for a fishing rod is you want something with a sensitive tip that's going to have a good backbone. I like something with a nice long foregrip and a long butt too. It's a lot more comfortable for bottom fishing, especially if you're a taller guy like I am. That longer foregrip gives me the ability to hold that reel out a little bit more further away from me instead of scrunching it up against my body. So a long butt and a long foregrip is something I look for in a custom rod, and that's how we built our custom rods. As far as the reels, Corey, I'm a Daiwa guy through and through. I love my Daiwa Saltist and my Daiwa Saltigas. 2-speed lever drag reels work really well for the snapper. For the big grouper, I like a Penn Senator, a 6/0 Senator or a 9/0 Senator, depending on the size grouper that I'm targeting. But there are some nicer options like the Accurate ATDs are a super nice 2-speed reel with a lot of drag, and I'm definitely saving my pennies, and definitely would love to get one of those big Accurate ATDs. Southeastern Fishing Tackle Liquidators in Tampa has a huge line of Accurate reels, and they could definitely get you hooked up for the type of reel you want, but they are pricey, but they're worth the price. For blackfin tuna, man, you can troll for blackfin, so you'd want a trolling reel for that. You can flatline for blackfin, which you could use your 2-speed Daiwa Saltist or Saltiga. You could use a large 5,000 to 6,000 series spinning reel for that. So blackfin tuna is kind of a tough one to answer because there's so many different techniques that you can use to catch blackfin. My favorite bait for a blackfin tuna on the troll would be a Rapala X-Rap Magnum 30. My favorite bait for a blackfin flatlining would just be a whole thread fin, just free lined out there while we're anchor fishing, especially at night on our 39-hour when we get that big chum line going. A little super light weighted jig head and a whole thread fin into the current. Not during red snapper season when the boat's full, but outside of red snapper season when the boat's not as full. Just a small little weighted jig head and a whole thread fin thrown out there into the current. As that goes down into the chum line, they just get smacked by some big tuna. You can also do a light knocker rig with a tail hook pinfish. That's a good bait for the tuna. For grouper, big bait, big tackle. That's my favorite option. For a big gag grouper, you have to use a big rod and reel. If I'm going for a 20-30 pound gag, I'm going to be using a 9/0 reel with a 100-pound test, 125 pound leader, and a 10/0 hook with a huge live bait, biggest one I can find. For red grouper, more like 60 pound test and a 7/0 circle hook with a long strip of squid is a great option for the red grouper. For snapper species, I like that mangrove snapper. My favorite option is a 40 to 50 pound fluorocarbon setup with a double snell rig with a thread fin plug, which is cutting the head, cutting the tail, and trimming that belly. So hopefully that answered your question about what rods, reels, and bait to use for snapper, grouper, and tuna. But we have a bunch of other more intricate details, if you will. We have a bunch of videos on our YouTube page. You can look up Hubbard's Marina on YouTube, and we have approaching 400 videos. And a lot of those are how-to videos and seminars. So you can always ask another question, and I can go into more detail. You can check out some of those other videos. Craig Lars said, are you ever looking for a captain to run one of your boats, 6-pack? Unfortunately, Craig, we're not looking for any captains right now. We're pretty well staffed in the captain department, but we are always accepting applications, and we'd always encourage anybody to come drop off an application for us. We are looking for some positions on the boat in the galley. If you guys want to come drop off an application to be a galley cook, we are definitely going to be looking for some of that for some backups to make sure we have plenty of people. And we do need some help on the beach rental, kayak rental side of things. And we could possibly use a water taxi shell key captain, but that would be a 50-ton captain, not a 6-pack captain. But you're welcome to come drop off an application. We're always accepting applications. Brett said, last week you spoke about cutting the tails and the bellies of the thread fin. Brett said, usually I just cut the tail. Well, yesterday I thought of you and decided to cut the belly, pulled up a nice snowy with it. That's a cool story, Brett. I'm happy some of my tips helped you catch some more fish. Cutting the belly of that thread fin is awesome. One of the things I don't mention and I forget to mention is you want to bring bait shears, some surgical trauma scissors or just plain shears. We sell some bait shears right in our office. They work really well to grab that thread fin out of the box, cut the head, cut the tail, and trim the belly very quickly. And I like to get artistic with my bait and make sure that it's a very hydrodynamically shaped bait so that can torpedo to bottom without spinning around your main line or getting you tangled up on the way to bottom. And when you cut that belly cavity open, you get a lot of smell going in the water, and it seems to work very well. Even if you're fishing for grouper and you want that big thread fin, just cut the tail off just so it doesn't spin, and just trim the very bottom of the belly just so that cavity is opened up, and you'll be impressed with how much smell gets out into the water. Let's see what other questions. Brett King said, what are the rates for a Mrs. Hub 24-hour? Off the top of my head, Brett, I don't know. But we do have a ton of options for the Mrs. Hub. For those of you watching, the Mrs. Hub is our 60-foot Hatteras. It's more of a yacht than a fishing boat, but it is mainly a long-range fishing boat or a very comfortable day trip fishing boat or island trip excursion type of boat. We also do some overnight camping trips on it. Best way to get information on it would be to go to hubbardsmarina.com, click private charters, and then scroll down and click the Mrs. Hub. The Mrs. Hub is a beautiful boat, custom leather couches, silk sheets, granite countertops, gold leaf sinks. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous boat. More of a yacht, like I said. It even has a cushioned back deck. It's so nice. We can do 12, 15, 18, 24, 48, 53, 63, 72-hour trips, whatever you want to do, Brett. The best way to get the pricing on all of that is to email us at sales, SALES, at hubbardsmarina.com. But I want to say a 24-hour trip is somewhere in the neighborhood of around $4,000-ish dollars. But that is a total guess. It might be more like $3,500. But that would be a 24-hour trip. The trick is we'd have to bring 2 captains, and that's when it gets a little bit more pricey. So I would suggest going more like a 30-hour trip if you wanted to. But the Mrs. Hub is great. And to get out there, anchor up on some snapper fishing bottom, maybe drop some hydro-glow lights down and get the bait going around the boat. It's just an epic, epic boat to fish on at night, especially with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. It's just gorgeous. There's so much room, and it's so beautiful. It's almost a shame to fish off of sometime, but it's a great, great platform. And Captain Joe Drew is running the Mrs. Hub now with some really great success. And I'm sure he'd love to have you out, Brett. Gary Jones said, how deep you fishing? Well, Gary, we do 5-hour half days that fish 30 foot of water. We do a 63-hour deep drop pelagic trip that fishes 1,000 feet of water. So we do a lot of different depths when we're fishing. But right now on our 39-hour trips, our 12-hour extreme trips, the long-range Mrs. Hub trips that are catching all these huge American red snapper, big fat red grouper, big huge red or gag grouper. Most of them are fishing from 150 to about 250 foot of water, somewhere in that range. So it kind of depends on the trip and what you're targeting. But we are really nailing the big fish out there in the deep water. It's a great time of year to get out there and enjoy some of that red snapper action. Keep in mind, red snapper is open June 1st through July 22nd at 12:01 a.m. on our fishing boats. And then gag grouper will be open through the end of the year. And then August 1st, amberjack reopens for August, September, and October. We do have some issues coming up with mangrove snapper. The Science and Statistical Committee just met the 31st of May, and they made a conclusion that mangrove snapper are experiencing overfishing and the stock is overfished. So that is not good. The Gulf Council is probably going to make some action on that for 2019, but for now, everything holds the same for mangrove snapper for the rest of this year, unless they change that at the June meeting. I'll be traveling down to the National Marine Fisheries Gulf Council meeting here at the end of June, and I'll definitely keep you guys apprised of the situation, and hopefully nothing drastic will happen. I would imagine we're going to see some size limit changes to mangrove snapper, and I would imagine we're going to see possibly a bag limit adjustment as well. But we're hoping and praying that doesn't happen. I would say a minimum size limit increase is probably definitely in the books for a mangrove snapper. Possibly red grouper, actually definitely red grouper will see some changes next year as well. Kyle Gentry said, what are your thoughts on Dogfish Sticks 7-foot rods for grouper? Kyle, I love Dogfish Tackle. They do a great job. I don't think we have a bad tackle shop here in our area. Gandy Bait and Tackle, Southeastern Bait and Tackle, Bass Pro Shops, St. Pete Fishing Outfitters, Tarpon Fishing Outfitters, Tampa Fishing Outfitters, Dogfish Bets. They all do an awesome job, but the Dogfish sticks that Dogfish manufactures are awesome rods. I used to fish with the Dogfish stick when I was younger, and I love those rods, and they've even improved on them quite a bit. Again, Bull Bay Rods has lately been my dream, and we're finally partnering with them to come up with some Hubbard's Marina rods. But the Dogfish stick is a great option for the price. You really can't beat the price they charge for that rod. And a 7-foot rod is a great length for grouper. The rods I use for grouper are 7 foot long. It's solid glass. They're big, heavy broomstick style rods, but they've got a nice, light, sensitive tip. And that's what you're looking for, Kyle. But yeah, Dogfish, the guys there, they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They'll get you set up with the right type of rod. Philip asks, what's the minimum number of people for the 39-hour trip to go? Well, there is really no minimum number of people, Philip. We go on trips often where we are just barely breaking even, or even sometimes even losing a little bit of money. It's more of what's the weather doing, and what's the mix of people, and are we covering the fixed costs? And if we're not covering them, how much money could we possibly lose is the question. But I assume you're talking about the super light 39-hour coming up June 17th. Don't panic yet, Philip. We're doing some advertising for that super light 39-hour coming up June 17th. We've been catching boat limits of American red snapper, and we've been nailing the big grouper, and the bite's only getting better, Philip. So I find it really hard to imagine that we're not going to get enough people to go on the June 17th 39-hour. I don't know how you could pass up a chance to be on a super light load. All our red snapper 39-hour trips are sold out with 46, 47, 50 people. But somehow the June 17th 39-hour, we added it late in the game, yes, but I don't know why it's not filling up a little bit more. But we're definitely going to fill it up, Philip. And I'm planning on going. And if anything changes with that, we'll definitely let you know ASAP. Joe Belmore said, how do you feel about knocker rigging? Knocker rigging is awesome, but knocker rigging is only something you would do in a very specific situation. When the bite is slow is typically when you knocker rig. When I'm out there, I was raised on the back deck of these party boats, and I was always taught the quicker that you could get, or I always felt that a quicker that you could get a fish from the bottom to the fish box, the better, because you'd be more successful. You can catch more fish more quickly and be more efficient out there. A knocker rig takes a long time to get to bottom because you're using a super light lead, and it's easy to miss the bite. If you miss the bite, you lose your bait. You got to reel it up and restart that super long process. So I'd much rather stick with a big egg sinker and a fish finder rig with that slip lead and rocket to bottom, catch my fish and rocket it to the surface and fill that fish box as quick as possible. But when the bite is slow, a knocker rig is a great option. A knocker rig really allows you to present your bait naturally and gives you a chance to get some of those unaggressive, leader shy fish to chew. Also, when you've been bottom fishing an area for a while and you've got those fish chummed up off the bottom, a knocker rig is a great option as well. But typically, knocker rigging is a very specific application that you would do when the bite's a little bit slow. This time of year, as we come into the summer, the water gets super hot, so during the day, sometimes the bite can be a little bit slower, and that would be a great opportunity to knock a rig or use a jig head or use some of these other methods to get those fish to chew for you. So how do I feel about knocker rigging? I like it, but I only use it sparingly when the situation allows or calls for it. Hog fishing is a great opportunity to use the knocker rig. For hog fishing, I would knocker rig. I would use a naked ball jig, or I would just use a jig head with a live shrimp or a fiddler crab on it. So in certain situations, knocker rigging is awesome. But a knocker, guys, we got a phone call there. Captain Bobby's trying to reach me, so I'll call him back after the video. Smokey, if you're watching, call Bobby and tell him to hold on. So the next question was, oh no, how close have I seen red snapper? Was the next question. Red snapper. Well, I've seen them caught in 25 foot of water to our northwest. So red snapper are super close. But to get a large amount of big red snapper, I would still go out there to 110, 120 foot of water plus. They're biting really well out there in the deeper water in the 120, 140, 150 foot range, all the way out to about 250 to 280 foot. We're seeing huge red snapper. But you can catch red snapper in 60, 70, 80 feet of water right now. They're pretty thick out there, and they're really coming back well. That population is doing well in the Gulf of Mexico. So definitely you can see them close, Manuel, but I would travel a little bit further to try to get some of those big sized red snapper. Gary Bresnick said braided line does not stretch. Mono or fluorocarbon stretches. Yes, Gary, those are some of the traits of braided line and monofilament, but also braided line will cut you when it's under pressure. Mono or fluorocarbon will not. Braided line is much thinner diameter, so it'll cut through the water differently. And if you're using braided line and everybody's using mono, you're going to get tangled up. Braided line costs a lot more money, and braided line all around isn't a good option for bottom fishing. If you're using braided line, that's when you're snapper fishing or vertical jigging and you need that sensitivity. But you want to make sure that you're using that monofilament top shot or fluorocarbon top shot to prevent yourself from losing fish. So Eric said, hey Dylan, I'm on the July 6th 39-hour trip. I was wondering if the Florida is running a half day the morning before. Would like to go out and catch some big baits if it is running that morning. Yes, Eric, our half day runs every single day, rain or shine, typically, as long as we have people. So yes, the half day goes every single day. Eric, you're welcome to book a half day trip before your 39-hour trip to go out there and catch some big pigfish, squirrel fish, and other fish like that for your 39-hour trip. So yes, more than welcome to book that half day before your 39-hour to get the big primo baits. Rayan Enya said, I wanted to ask about fish tamer hooks. Do you recommend them? I've heard of fish tamer hooks. I've never personally used them, so I couldn't recommend them or not recommend them. I really like the Offshore Angler Bass Pro Shops hooks. I like the Owner hooks, and I really like the Gamakatsu hooks. Those are typically the brands that I stick to. And a lot of my recommendations, guys, if I tell you something, it's just because what I like. If I'm telling you something because I'm sponsored by it, I tend to make it a little bit obvious. But yeah, those Gamakatsus and Owners, those are my go-to brand of hooks for sure. I like the Owner hooks a lot because they have a small barb on them and thin wire, so it makes it really good for mangrove snapper fishing. You can set the hook easily and quickly and be very successful for those mangrove snapper. And Gamakatsu is what I like for those big grouper because they make some 4X super strong hooks that work very well for the big grouper. Next question. Dan Christopher said, what is your recommendation to catch a world record porgy? Go deep, man. Go real deep. We catch those big, huge margates on our 63-hour trip in super deep water. And squid in deep water is going to be how you catch that world record porgy, Dan. That would be pretty cool. That'd be a big porgy for sure. They get big out there. And we've caught some porgies that we thought were records, but the record on a porgy is huge, especially the world record, because they get really big over in Europe area and the Mediterranean and such. They get monster porgies. Corey said, is there any good striper fishing over there to catch big striped bass off the beach or in the harbor? We do not have striped bass in the west coast of Florida, or on the west coast of Florida, Corey. We have big largemouth bass in our retention ponds and brackish water or freshwater river areas. And a lot of our lakes here in Florida, we're really famous for our largemouth bass fishing. In South Florida, you can catch peacock bass, but that is my extent of bass fishing knowledge here in the state. And no, we don't have striped bass on our coast. They might have them up in east Florida, like Jacksonville area. But to my knowledge, you have to go north of the Carolinas to catch the striped bass. And that's more of a northeast thing. But Jorge Moncada said, I had the most memorable 39-hour trip this past weekend. Thanks to you and your crew for preparing me for the adventure. I limited out on American red snapper several times over, released everyone over my 2-day limit, and almost limited out on mangroves, not including all the grouper and other species I caught. Thanks, Jorge, for choosing Hubbard's Marina and enjoying your 39-hour trip. And we appreciate your kind comment on the video. That's pretty awesome. You caught a 2-day limit of American red snapper and nearly a 2-day limit of mangroves, plus grouper and other species too. So that sounds like you had an epic trip, to say the least. Thanks for choosing Hubbard's Marina, and we'll hope to see you again soon, buddy. John said, can I bring my spinning reel on a 10-hour trip? Yes, you can. We'd encourage you to bring a spinning reel on a 10-hour trip. On our 5-hour half day or 10-hour all days, I would really recommend a 4,000 to 5,000 series spinning reel for the smaller snapper species and for the hogfish. The 10-hour trip was doing really well on the hogfish before red snapper season. And on the backside of red snapper season, I'm sure we'll take that up again. Keep in mind, during red snapper season, we don't offer a 10-hour all day. All our 10-hour all-day trips are turned into 12-hour day trips, special day trips for red snapper. And all that is we go a little bit further, a lot longer ride out, but you get more depth of water in your fishing trip. You do get less fishing time on the special 12-hour party boat trip that we offer during red snapper season compared to the 10-hour all day, but you are a lot further out. On a 10-hour all day, it's an hour and a half to 2-hour ride out. You're 15 to 25 miles from shore. On our 12-hour special party boat trip that's only offered during red snapper season, that takes the place of the 10-hour. We're fishing 40 to 60 miles from shore for 4 to 6 hours fishing time, and we're fishing anywhere from about 110 to about 150 foot of water. So that's a lot different of a trip. But on a 10-hour, yes, bring your spinning reel. On a 12-hour special party boat trip, leave the spinning reel at home. Any 12-hour trip, the 12-hour day trip or the 12-hour extreme, you don't need the spinning reel. The 12-hour night snapper trip, bring the spinning reel. That fishes a little bit deeper than the 10-hour, but not too much. And the spinning reel, especially like a 5,000 series spinning reel, the Quantum Cabo is a great option to catch some nice big mangrove snapper. Bob Bigham said, when I'm not going out fishing on trips with you guys, I love to surf fish. Where are there some good spots in the area? Well, surf fishing, Bob, I would target anywhere. When you're inshore fishing or surf fishing, you're looking for 3 main things. Points, pockets, and passes. So, for example, along Madeira, the southern edge of Madeira Beach, you have the point of the Johns Pass jetty. You have the pocket where the tide eddies right just northwest of that tip of that jetty. And then you have, obviously, Johns Pass. So you have all 3 P's of inshore fishing right in one place. So I love the south end of Madeira Beach for shore fishing. Also, same rules apply in Blinds Pass. Blinds Pass, Upham Beach, the south side of Blinds Pass. Some people are probably going to be upset, but that is awesome shore fishing right in there. Great snook fishing almost all year round right there in Blinds Pass. Also Paso Grill, the north side of Paso Grill, the very tippy end of Paso Grill. You ride Gulf Boulevard all the way down past the Dawn until it ends down there on the east side of Paso Grill along those rocks. Great surf fishing along the jetty. Awesome shore fishing in there on the west side as well. So the whole tip of Paso Grill is a great area to shore fish. There's a lot of good shore fishing areas up north around Honeymoon Island. Honeymoon Island is a great place to shore fish. Calabisi, any of those areas where you've got those points, pockets, and passes is a great opportunity for shore fishing. So hopefully that answered your question. One big thing, Bob, is shore fishing down here is different than it is in Texas or on the north or on the East Coast. You don't want to just cast as far out as you can to get out past the waves. Here you want to cast parallel to the beach and fish in those troughs along the beach. That's the big mistake I see people making when they're shore fishing. All right, so next question. Let's see here. Corey said, what is the biggest gear you need for shark fishing? Well, we do a lot of shark fishing. I was just shark fishing Friday night on our trophy shark trip. I think the biggest gear we use would be like a 14-aught big Penn Senator reel with about 200-pound braided line and a 150-pound top shot with a 175-pound cable and a big, I think it's a 16-aught hook that we use. That's the big tackle we use, but you can even use, I've seen people use chain, small link chain to fish for sharks. Mustad makes a like a 24-aught hook or something heinous. Mustad has some really good shark fishing tackle, but it really depends on the type of shark you want. One big mistake I see people make is when you're shark fishing, your leader wants to be as long as a shark you want to catch, because not only do you have to watch out for the teeth on a shark, but a lot of times the tail of the shark will break you off or cause abrasion to your line and make it pop. So you want to make sure that your leader goes past the tail of the shark, because let's say the tip of my finger is the mouth of the shark and it's got the hook in it, and the back of my wrist is the tail of the shark. Well, that leader's in its mouth and that leader's running along the side of the shark, and as that tail is swimming along, it's whapping the leader line. That's why a lot of times when you're fighting a shark, the tip of your rod's going like this, because that's actually, as that shark's swimming, it's the tail slapping the line, and that tail slapping the line is what's going to break you off a lot of times when you're shark fishing. So you want to use a leader that's long enough to land the shark. So if you want a 10-foot shark, you need a 10-foot leader, etc. So as far as what's the biggest gear you need for shark fishing, that's unlimited, man. You can make your own hooks, and you can use huge chains to go fishing for one of those megalodons that they talk about on Shark Week. But typically we're using about 175-pound cable with about a 16-aught hook and about a 9 to 12-aught Penn Senator, or one of the big Daiwa reels. Best tips to prevent from spinning or getting tangled. Brandon, the best tip to prevent spinning to the bottom or getting tangled is using that monofilament top shot. If you use straight braided line to your swivel, you're going to get tangled up nonstop on yourself, because braided line does not have memory. So that monofilament lines, or your monofilament leader, is going to come up because your weight is pulling that bait to the bottom right at the swivel. So as your monofilament leader comes up alongside your braid, it's going to get tangled because that braid doesn't have memory. It's not stiff. So using that top shot is going to prevent you from getting tangled, and hooking your bait in such a way, you got to hook your bait at one end or the other. Even shrimp, I saw it today on the half day I was running. Someone hooked their shrimp in the middle of their shrimp, dropped down, and they reeled up a big tangled mess because that shrimp being hooked in the middle spun on the way down, tangled up their main line. By the time they got to the bottom, they had a tangled mess. You've got to hook the bait in one end or the other. You can't hook it in the middle. You can't even hook it a quarter of the way down. It's got to be one end or the other. That way it goes down to the bottom hydrodynamically and does not spin around the bait. Also, you can always slow down your bait. For example, if you tail hook a pinfish, it's going to spin and go down incorrectly. If you hook it up underneath the chin and out the top of the face, it's going to rock at the bottom naturally, and it's not going to spin. You're not going to have a problem. But you want to tail hook it sometimes, especially if the bite's a little bit slow. A tail hooked pinfish along the bottom is going to turn on those mangrove snapper or gag grouper. But in order to do that, you have to slow the descent of your line with your thumb. So best tips to prevent a rig from spinning and getting tangled is hook it properly and slow your descent, and use top shot. You won't ever get tangled on the way to the bottom. Hopefully. Brett said, I heard Joe slammed it on the Mrs. Hub this past trip. Well, Brett, if I wasn't using my phone to do this live stream, I would show you on my phone how he did. He sent me the photo. They absolutely snatched it. They got a limit of American red snapper, limited grouper, and a bunch of big fat yellowtails and some mangroves too. Drinking water tonight. Red snapper season. Have no time for that Jameson stuff. Man, been running a lot of trips though, and I do enjoy that. It's nice getting out of the office. Jovan said mangrove snapper is my favorite fish. I agree 100%. Mangrove snapper is my favorite fish to catch, my favorite fish to eat, my favorite fish all around. They're a bad to the bone predator. Their fangs are impressive, and the way they feed on the bait is just so cool. I enjoy fishing for mangroves, I enjoy catching mangroves, and I enjoy eating mangroves for sure. Hands down my favorite fish, and I thoroughly believe that the angler who can catch mangrove snapper consistently and catch them often is the best angler on the boat, because they're such a quick biting, super aggressive, leader shy, smart fish. It really takes a lot of experience, a little bit of luck, and some really good techniques to catch those mangrove snapper consistently and often. That's why I thoroughly enjoy targeting them, preferably just because it's a challenge. It's a grouper. You use a big enough bait and big enough tackle, and you have enough patience, you're going to catch some big grouper eventually. Hogfish, if you fish down an area, you're using the right bait, you're in the right spot, you're going to catch them eventually. Mangrove snapper, it's you can be fishing in an area and everybody on the boat's catching some other species, but if you're using the right approach and the right technique and doing it right, you're gonna catch those big mangroves. And we made a video on mangrove snapper fishing tips, and you guys can feel free to watch that, and hopefully I'll help you catch a few more mangroves. But I agree completely, Jovan, it is my favorite fish as well, so thank you. Roger Zamudio said, do you have any good points of contact to have our cat shipped home? And yes, we have a ton of options for getting your cat shipped home. We work with a company called Sending TLC. They're right local in Gulfport off of 49th Street. And they will come to your hotel, pick up your fish, pack and ship it back to your doorstep. You can bring it to them, and they'll pack and ship it at their shop for a little less money and send it back to you. You could bring it to them. They're going to package it and get it right for you to bring it home yourself on an airplane or drive it home. They have a bunch of different options for you as far as packing and shipping your fish. So yes, we do have contacts. We have their big stack of their business cards in our office with all their contact information. And I can also send you that information via Facebook or an email as well. So yes, we do know people who can pack and ship your fish, but we do not do it ourselves. I personally use my Ingle cooler and drive my fish. If I'm flying, what I'll do is I'll take my fish and I'll freeze it in a Ziploc bag, get it nice and frozen, and then I'll put it in a soft-sided Ingle bag with those freezer packs by Ingle or any freezer packs you get, and you layer your fish in with the freezer packs in a good soft-sided cooler. You can bring it on the airplane as a carry-on, and I've never had issues on Southwest, Delta, Allegiant. No one's given me any issues. You just tell them what it is, and most of them just ask you for a fresh fish fillet. Never had a problem yet, at least. Kyle Gentry said, are the larger pen fathoms loaded with braid okay to troll with on the 39 hour? Yeah, braided line is not evil, guys. It's evil if you're using it for straight braid for bottom fishing. But if you're using a top shot with it, it's not a problem for bottom fishing. And when you're trolling, braided line is awesome. I use braided line on all my trolling reels because braided line has thinner diameter, so you can put more line in the reel. So if you hook that big billfish that's tail walking away from the boat, braided line is going to save your life because you're going to have more line in the reel. Also, braided line is going to cut through the water more easily. So your trolling lures are going to get. Say hi, buddy. No, he just wants to go for a walk. Your trolling lures are going to get lower in the water with braided line as well. So I like using braided line when I'm trolling. But again, I always put a lot of fluorocarbon. Like, for example, if I'm trolling one of those big Rapala X-Wraps, I'll put about 12 to 15 feet of fluorocarbon on top of that braid to make sure none of those fish see that braided line, and to also give a little bit of shock absorption and just be a little bit more stealthy, I guess you would say. Mo Man said, do you fish with clams? No. I've fished with clams before for sheep's head, so I take that back. I have fished with clams, but I don't use them offshore. I'm sure they would work, though. They're plenty slimy and smelly, and I'm sure they'd work for some of the snapper species. Joe said, owners are steep, though. Yes, they are steep in price, Joe. A great secondary option if you don't want to shell out the money for owner hooks would be the Bass Pro Shops offshore angler hooks, the octopus beak up eye hooks. Again, that's octopus beak up eye hooks from Offshore Angler, which is a Bass Pro Shops product. It is basically an owner hook for a whole lot less money, and I've had great success with them, and that's not just because I'm on their pro team. I really do enjoy their hooks. They make good hooks, and they have good fluorocarbon as well. And they're a whole lot cheaper than owner hooks. But we don't sell the Bass Pro Shop stuff in our shop. So when I'm buying tackle last minute for the trip, I buy the owner hooks from our shop. Rick Schumann said, I'm going on Tuesday's 39 hour. What is a middle of the road trolling rig? Would love a shot at a blackfin. Well, Rick, you don't need a trolling rig to catch blackfin tuna. You can catch them on the flat line. You can catch them chunking at night for them as well. But during red snapper season, when the boat's a little bit more full, or really most of the time it is full, except for June 17th, we have a super light load. Book now. Or July 8th, we have a super light load. You can book that and have a chance to flatline for tuna. But if you are fishing during red snapper season on one of these more full trips, which is every single trip except for June 17th and July troll for a good chance of the blackfin tuna. Anybody can troll. You don't need a stern spot to troll. And the Shimano TLD WRSLA or something like that, some really long across name we sell in our shop. It's a Shimano TLD 50. It's a great trolling reel, and it's around off the top of my head like $400. But we do price match any regular price. No crazy online super sales. We're not going to price match that, but we'll price match any regular price that you find out there online or whatever, and we can always order you something. So if you see something, you know something, you want to order something, we can always order it with a week or two notice. We'll have it for you in the shop, ready for your trip. But Rick, if you're going Tuesday on the 39 hour, we do have plenty of those Shimano TLDs right in the shop. You can come down early, or you can come down early the day of your trip and get you rigged up. But please don't show up an hour before the trip asking for us to get that trolling rod and reel rigged up for you. It will not work out very easily for any of us. Christopher, thanks for the compliment on my haircut. I went to a new barber, and it's a little lower than I would like. I like my fade a little bit higher, but I'll go back to my barber here soon and get it fixed up. But I appreciate the compliment nonetheless. And I'd love to come to Costa Rica fishing with you. I love Costa Rica. I went down there with the Real Animals fishing team for one of their fishing tournaments in Crocodile Bay, and it was awesome. Costa Rica has a great fishery. I caught a nice huge cabera and a red snapper on the surface about maybe 150 yards from the beach, freelining a big blue runner. I was freelining out. It was right on the surface, skipping. I could tell something was chasing it, and all of a sudden this reddish black figure comes out of the water with my blue runner in its mouth, and I was like, holy. And I just put the hammer down and fought that fish, and it ended up being about a 42-pound Cubera snapper fed out of the water on that free line bait. So needless to say, I'm in love with Costa Rica. I love the food. I love the beer, Imperial beer, one of my favorites. North Costa Rica, Jaco VIP. My buddy Josh Foster runs that great operation. Hopefully you have a good time in Costa Rica, buddy. Let's see what other questions we have here. Dominic Prosperi said, can you apply the same style of mangrove snapper fishing you talk about to fishing, say, by the Skyway for them? Yes, Dominic. Sorry about that. Another phone call, guys. Yes, Dominic, I would use the same style of fishing for mangrove snapper by the Skyway. I would just use lighter tackle. For example, I would probably use 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon instead of 40 to 50 pound fluorocarbon. And I would use, like, say, maybe 15 to 25 pound braid for the mangrove snapper on the Skyway. Chris, Jimmy, thank you guys. I look forward to fishing with you guys on the 44 hour as well. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Seems like we might have froze up. If you guys are listening, can you still see the video? Am I frozen in time, or is that just on my side? Anybody? Bueller? No, I guess it must not be frozen. I see someone's clicking like. Thank you for responding, guys. So must not be frozen. Keep getting phone calls. And I'm almost out of battery, so we're definitely gonna be wrapping this thing up. Let's see here. What rods would you definitely take on a 39-hour trip? We have a how to pack for 39-hour video that would be an awesome reference for you guys. It's a 29-minute video that I filmed on the bow of the Florida that breaks down how to pack for a 39-hour trip, and that would apply to a 44-hour trip as well. So I strongly recommend watching that video on our YouTube channel, but I would definitely take 3 rods on a 39-hour trip. I would bring a 2-speed high-speed reel. My Daiwa Saltiga is my go-to on my Hubbard's Marina killer stick. It's a mangrove snapper killer. It'll catch some red grouper. It'll catch a big red snapper too. I'll use a 6-aught with 60 to 80 pound test for the smaller gags and the huge red snapper. And then I'd bring a 9-aught that I could use for trolling on the way out. I could use it for amberjack, and I could also use it for monster gag grouper. And those would be my 3 go-tos for the 39-hour trip. But I also might bring a smaller reel that I could use for a flip casting rod if any mahi-mahi cruise by, or if I saw a cobia. And I might bring a more specialized trolling reel. Tanner Loss said, what type of knot do you use to attach mono to braid? My favorite knot I learned at Dogfish Tackle, and the guys there can show you how to do it. It's the PR bobbin knot. Steve Pappin, Captain Steve Pappin, I think was the one who kind of brought that into Dogfish. But yeah, the PR bobbin knot is probably my favorite. Very difficult to tie. I myself are still kind of tuning that in, but it works very well. And then followed by the FG knot. The FG knot's super easy to tie. The easiest one that I use quite often is the reverse Albright knot. Let's see here. Can you use a double hook for snapper? Yes, Evan Smith. I only use double hook rigs for snapper. It's a double Snell rig. #1 rig for snapper for sure. Peter said, do you allow trolling on your 10-hour trips? We allow trolling on our 5-hour half days and our 39, 44, and 63-hour party boat trips. On our 10 and 12 hours, typically we're going a little bit too fast. Sometimes on the 10-hour you can troll, but it just kind of depends on the day and how far we're going. So you can always check with the captain before you get on the boat to talk about trolling, but you're guaranteed to be able to troll on a 5-hour half day, on a 39, 44, 63 hour. The kingfish and mackerel are near shore right now. I ran the half day trip this morning. There was a lot of bait from the 2-mile mark out to about the 8 to 9 mile mark. A lot of bait schools, a lot of mackerel around. We were catching mackerel, just reeling shrimp up off the bottom. The mackerel were hitting. So definitely a good opportunity to troll on our 5-hour half days right now. The water is crystal clear out there, minus some of the algae that's hanging out on top of the water, but it's not red tide. It's just like a little stupid algae bloom. Kind of looks like pollen. But that's all I had, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed it, please share the video with your friends. And tune in next week, 8:30 p.m. We're going to be doing this again. Also, July 17th, we have Tightline Tuesdays with Flats Mafia Radio. If you want to join us for that event, it's going to be a good time. Again, Tightline Tuesdays, July 17th. We have that super light 39-hour on June 17th and July 8th. Book those trips today. It's going to be an awesome experience for sure. Super light load during red snapper season. And thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. Hopefully, we'll see you soon at Hubbard's Marina for some more fishing fun. And I look forward to reading your comments, guys, and answering any more questions you have. If you're not watching this video live, still feel free to leave your comments, questions, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And enjoy, guys. Red snapper season's open. Fishing's hot. And we're ready to come have you join us at Hubbard's Marina. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 8:30 p.m. and tight lines.